Today's video, we're gonna talk about custom goals in Google Ads and how to use them to make more money. Okay, so I'm gonna first explain what a custom goal is if you're not aware of it yet and just stumbled upon this video. A custom goal is something where, first of all, when you have regular conversion goals in your Google Ads account, these are things that you're setting up to track so you can optimize for these things. Whether it be a form fill, phone call, a shopping cart purchase, a sale that went through your phone, what have you. You can't optimize for what you can't track or don't track. The better tracking you have, the better results you get with Google Ads. And the closer to tracking a purchase you get, the better results you get with Google Ads. A custom goal will allow you to track a combination of things. So if you don't want to track just one thing, you track multiple things, which is a really good use case for this that I'm going to explain in this video where you would want to do that to make more money, just like the video title says. You can do this though with a custom goal. It's really simple to set up a custom goal. The question is, where do you use it? Because a lot of people don't know how to use it or even what it is. I'm going to explain in detail both of those things in this video. And then I'll have an actual case study where I share with you physically just how profitable this is. So stay to the end of the video for that. Before we get into the content though, if you do not know who I am Corey Zyman, owner of Guaranteed PPC, an online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for their clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we can get them a certain minimum lift in the profitability, basically in excess of the management fees that we charge. So, and we're the only agency out there who offers any similar guarantee like that, or a guarantee at all for that matter. So I'm going to get into the content here. Now, custom goals in Google Ads allow you to track more than one conversion at once. So if you wanted to, for whatever crazy reason, for instance, track somebody who you're tracking them if they call after clicking on your ad, and you track whether they fill out a form. If for whatever reason you wanted to actually value and optimize for leads that did both, they filled out the form and then they called, indicating they're more as a buyer, you could actually set up a custom goal in Google Ads, which is this is at the bottom of the conversion menu in Google Ads. You could set up a custom goal and say, hey, Google, they need to do both of these things in order to be considered a conversion. And so what you're doing is you're creating a new conversion goal, which is a combination of other conversion goals you already have. In this case, form fill goal plus phone call goal. And it must be both, if you will. Technically, by the way, there's a way to have a conversion goal set up if you wanted to. If you go through and use your Google Analytics account to track and make or set up conversion goals, you could have something be or. So it's not just and, but in this case, or you could have a conversion goal set up that if somebody filled out a form or called, it would trigger this particular conversion. So you would have one conversion goal that is consolidated. In case you were wondering, this is also technically possible. But with that said, going back to custom goals, since that's what this video is about, this will actually, Google will actually let you combine conversion goals, multiple conversion goals that you have, whether it's 2, 3, 4, whatever, into one conversion goal, and do so even if the goal is marked primary or secondary, or should I say, even if the goal is marked secondary, given that if you don't, first of all, know about primary versus secondary, a goal that's marked primary is supposed to be used for campaign optimization purposes. A goal marked in secondary is not supposed to, which, if you're wondering why you set up a goal that you don't want to use for campaign optimization purposes, maybe you want to just measure a certain thing happening, but you don't want to have your campaigns optimized for it. One use case for that. But more so, it's more people are using it secondary for is to build up data. Or at least at our firm, if I'm optimizing for phone calls and form fills right now, I want to optimize for sales eventually because that is going to get me the most sales. Obviously, if you cannot get the most sales if you don't optimize for sales by itself, not phone calls, because the cheapest phone calls are never going to be the best phone calls by default. But when you optimize for something in Google Ads, you need a certain amount of conversions and conversion data to have the goal, to have the machine learning algorithm that drives the ads do a good job at it. So what we'll typically do is optimize for phone calls, form fills at the beginning, and then if we're tracking whether those leads turn into sales, we'll do it via a separate conversion goal that we'll eventually switch to and have the campaigns optimized from fully by itself. And in that case, while we're racking up data in that conversion goal, we'll have it marked secondary, so it doesn't essentially double count the conversions that we're getting coming in. That is, somebody calls, there's a conversion. Somebody buys, there's a conversion. So it technically counts 2 conversions in that case. Once in a while, we'll actually mark both of those primary, particularly if there's not very many sales coming through anyway. But we'll mark them one secondary, one primary most of the time itself, because, we do a good job with our ads here and a lot of the leads are turning into sales. So we don't want to double count itself. And that'll be the most ideal situation for us to have with a client account. Anyway, so if you have a goal marked secondary, you can actually create a custom goal, including that secondary goal if you want. So it doesn't have to be just marked primary. It can be a combination of primary and secondary goals, which generally speaking, the use case would be it would be a secondary goal with the primary goal with your custom goal that you set up. And I'm going to explain that situation where that would be the case. So first of all, custom goals are basically used when you have an actual sales funnel that you're trying to get users to go through. There's multiple steps, basically what we call multi-step forms on our website, or it could be multiple actions to where like somebody has to fill out a form and then they have to call, that would still be a sales funnel where we want to be able to track all the different steps there so that ultimately we value a user who completes 2 steps less than the people completing 3 of the 5 possible steps, and then value more a person who filled out 4 of the 5 steps more than the people who filled out or completed 2 or 3 of the steps. We would track each step separately, if you will, to have a bit more data. And also because we're going to have 30-minute minimum conversions racked up sooner on people who complete 2 of 5 steps versus 3 of 5 steps. And so we'll often optimize for 2 of the 5-step completions, then eventually 3, and then 4, until all the way till we get to where we're purely optimizing on all the steps being completed, because we've racked up a minimum amount of conversion data, 30 to 100 conversions already in and itself. So, but with that said, we will often have a multi-step form where people, what they tell you or admitting that they are or do in that multi-step form which just to clarify, if you don't know what a multi-step form is, it's a form, instead of having like a form where, it's like first name, last name, all that, it's a form where you're typically going to ask one question, such as, what's your name? And then when they click and submit that, it'll ask another question. Then it'll be like, what's your phone number? Then once they submit that, then another question or field will pop up. So it'll only show certain questions at certain times versus hitting them up with all the questions at once, which makes people more likely to finish the process, by the way, which is why we use them. But a lot of times when we do that, there's certain questions in there that we use to filter itself. We'll have it to where we'll be like, what's your budget? And some people actually have that where if they select, I don't have a budget, there'll be a pop-up that says, oh, sorry, we can't work with people that don't have a budget. And you can do that itself. For me, that's not going to be my style because I can still do something with the leads that are too small. I can sell the leads to another business or something at least. For the most part, but in that situation, the person knows that they can't do business with somebody without a budget. More often what happens with people is when somebody says they have a low budget, you could sell some of them. It's just less likely you're going to sell them. So you would still want the lead, even though that's not the ideal outcome to get a lead like that. So what you could do is you could set up a conversion goal for people who, say when it gets to the question asking, what is your budget? That as long as they answer anything with 5,000 or above, you have that set up as a conversion goal in Google Analytics, which you then import into Google Ads. And you have that goal marked secondary, so you have a bit more data, right? Well, then you could create a custom goal so that essentially if somebody gets all the way through your multi-step form process and they've triggered this other secondary goal, which would fire anytime someone says they have a budget of 5,000 or higher, then you have something that you're tracking which is the more ideal action, if you will. That is, it's not just anybody who fills out your multi-step form, but people that fill it out that have a 5,000 budget or higher. So in that case, if you will, you can still have your separate goal to track, people who fill out your multi-step form, but then also have a separate goal through a custom goal setup that tracks submissions with people that have answered the questions in a certain way, if you will. And then you can optimize eventually for people who fill out the form a certain way versus people who just fill out the form, which you're going to rack up that data quicker than people who fill out the form a certain way, like I mentioned before. So typically, I'm going to get like 100 conversions on somebody filling out the form a certain way before I switch all the campaigns to optimize for that. And in the meantime, I'm going to rack up data, on the people who fill out the form a certain way that I'm getting coming through. And then while I'm racking up that data, I'm going to optimize just for form submissions by itself because I'm going to get that data quicker and it'll get my campaigns off the ground quicker. Now, you can use offline conversion goals in replacement of custom goals to where if you have people coming through and you see, like in that example I gave, where you need to have people that have a certain size budget to work with them, and that's where you're asking them in that multi-step form, you can actually say, you can have a CallRail account where you track all your form fills there, if you will, and all your phone calls, let's say, in addition. We use CallRail for basically every account we work with at our firm. You actually look at all the leads that are there and see if somebody, checking your CRM or checking your notes, see if, or, actually looking at the form details in CallRail itself on the form submissions you got, see which ones said that they had a $5,000 budget a month or more. And then you could take the Google Click ID on those, which will be captured by the call tracking program, CallRail, and then pass that Google Click ID back into Google Ads to fire a certain offline conversion goal that is set up to track leads that came in that had a $5,000 budget or more. So you could use offline conversion tracking to optimize for people who answered the questions a certain way, or you can actually set up Google Analytics to track people who answered the questions a certain way, and then a custom goal set up, like I mentioned earlier, to do the same thing with automation, if you will. We had a client in the loan space where we did this exact thing. And before I get into that particular case study that I was going to go through here, if you need more results with Google Ads and you're not tracking exactly what you need to track, which lines up perfectly with the desired outcome of what you're expecting from your campaign, such as if you need people with a budget of at least $5,000 a month, like I explained before, and you're not tracking that, you need to track it, and you cannot possibly get mad at the results Google has given you without tracking exactly what you're looking for. Generally speaking, that means tracking the level or quality of lead that you need at a bare minimum, but more likely tracking the profit you're making from the people you're paying for from your ads. And sometimes, though, you cannot actually track sales because the leads come in and it takes too long for people to buy. It takes longer than 90 days for people to buy, which is the maximum amount of time you have to track people with Google Ads. And so what the next best thing is to track whether somebody coming in is qualified and has a certain size of budget. And then you use that to ultimately steer your ads with as a secondary to tracking how much profit you're making from these clicks that you have coming in. And then you'll get the best results that way. But ultimately, you want to figure out the best solution for tracking, whether it's going to be tracking qualified leads, tracking leads. You have a scoring system for leads, and then optimize, score every lead between 1 and 10, and then optimize for leads that are a 10. Whatever it is, you want the best tracking system you can get because honestly, 90% of the money you're making with your ads long-term are going to be from the data that you've racked up in your account. It's all the time where an account, we have that, if we've been running an account for 10 years, 95% of the results we got with that account was just based upon the length of time we've been running the ads and the amount of data we've racked up in the account. So your best bet to track the right things and track them correctly, and you get that stuff set up right because half or more of the value from the ad spend that you have is just in the racking up of conversion data, accurate conversion data, and capturing the most of it you can, because the more data you capture, the more accurate it is, and the closer it is to tracking actual profit in your business, the more you're going to make from your ads over time. And you don't want to look back 10 years from now and say, darn, I wish I would have tracked everything, because it's already too late. Get the full value out of your traffic and track everything. I can track literally anything you would possibly want with 100% accuracy or as accurate as possible, because this is all we do at our firm other than manage ads and make landing pages for clients, reach out to me at guaranteeppc.com if you're interested in getting that set up correctly. I can get you the best tracking setup. I can also give you 20 other ways that you can make your ads more profitable along with it. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I can also do a coaching or consulting call with you to explain what you can do, make your ads more profitable, how to track them, what's the best tracking system you could possibly have. I also offer ad templates here, by the way. And if you want to manage your own ads, which some people do, they don't want to work with an ad agency. But if I've worked in your niche market before, you should buy the winning ads, landing pages, campaign templates that work for your specific niche market, because it's way easier just to buy the template and cheaper and use what we have that works for a guy that we worked with in a different city or country than you, and just use that. And we can tell you the results you're going to get with it up front. There's no risk in it. Either we're getting better results than you're getting now and that you're looking for, or we aren't. And then you use that golden version of what we use to get results in that market, and you're going to get it for yourself. These templates work so good. We got people that use these templates to just start up other businesses. They're like, don't even like the business they're in, or they're nervous about it. They start up a new business from a template list that we have, and they start out just by subbing out the work to somebody else. And because the template's so efficient, they can mark up the service a little bit and keep a flow of and port of the revenue coming through for themselves, or they drop ship the product, whatever. So anyway, if you're interested in any of that, let me know. You can reach out to me at my site at guaranteeppc.com. But going back to the case study, or going into that finally here. So we had a guy that we worked with, or company, that did business loans, okay? And what we did in this particular situation is we set up primary and secondary conversion goals. We had the multi-step form, like I mentioned before, where they had to fill out questions. And then at the end of the process, they could actually apply for the loan, literally speaking itself. But we had it to where they could finish the form, and then if they wanted to save time, they could go and just fill out the application versus us contacting them. If they got through the initial multi-step form where we got all their information, not necessarily the application itself, then what we did is we tracked people who filled out that form into completion and set that as a primary goal that we were optimizing for up front, like I was saying before. Then we also set up a secondary goal, which would track whether people would answer the question about how much revenue their company was generating. We had that to where if they were answering, over 50K a month in revenue, then we would have that goal set up to trigger when that question was answered, because there was brackets. If they answered anything above 50,000, like 50 to 80, 80 to 100, 100 to 150, like that, any of those that are over 50, that triggered a particular goal that we set up through Google Analytics, and that we imported into Google Ads. Okay, mark that goal secondary, because we're not optimizing for that purely, because we want to also see somebody not only just had said that they have a monthly revenue of over 50,000, but we also want to see that person's got gumption. They actually wanted to finish the entire form process to give us the rest of their information, because ideally we want, people who fill out the form and are of the correct revenue versus just have the right revenue. So we set up those goals separately, and then we set up our custom goal, which tracks both of them. So the person should, that we're not expecting them to do just one or the other one, but both. That is where the magic actually happens here, which, by the way, you could get as fancy with this as you wanted. We did some other experimentation after we did this, where we had a question in there about how long they've been in business. And so we had it in Google Analytics that the person needed to say that they had a 50K in revenue or more. They also had to say they were in business for at least 2 years already, okay? And then that was actually what our goal was. You could also do an and situation. You could do or as well. You could say, with your conversion goal that you set up, the person must have answered this, or if not this, they also answered this, and have that be your conversion goal. So you could, with Google Analytics, it's so configurable that if you want people to answer at least one of these 3 questions a certain way, or answered these 2 questions, and then this one question over here, you could have that be your conversion goal. You could have it to where people need to mark, of the possible 3 options, this one And then on this question over here, on the possible options, it either needs to be this or this. So it can be and, this, and, or it can be this or this or this. It could be and or when you set up your conversion goal inside Google Analytics. I highly encourage you to not only use multi-step forms because they're getting way better results than single forms nowadays. It always was that case, but now it's extreme, like the gap in the results that you're gonna get, it's ridiculous. We're getting twice the conversion rates on landing pages using multi-step forms than we are without, especially in anything with finance, insurance, anything like that. But you wanna do like what I'm talking about here to get the full profit out of it, which is to track individual questions that are as a part of your application process, quoting process, whatever you're doing. And along with the people who finish the process, to try to eventually optimize for people who finish the process the correct way, the ideal way that you want. Now, as far as the results that we got with this company, with that said, I'm going to go through the results here, but what I want to point out here is what I just told you is worth millions of dollars in and itself. If you switch to multi-step forms on your site and you tell people that instead of just contacting us for a quote, find and get a quote within 60 seconds, just just answer these questions. And then the first question's a lowball question like, or how quickly do you want your liability insurance? Something that anybody can answer, and then asking them the rest of the questions you normally would want and need to ask, and then calling them as soon as they fill it out. I mean, that in itself, generally speaking, will give you an edge in your market. And that's all you need, everything else being equal. But the reason why I know that is because not only do I test a bunch of stuff, but I see what other guys are doing when I take over an ad account from somebody and I see what the other agency did or the other guy did. I study all that and I audit accounts all the time. And so with that, just as a product of 40 hours a week doing that stuff, I find all the stuff that's working. And as the trends change, I pick up on it. And I give it to you for free on this channel, of course, in a confidential way. I don't name names. Don't do that, but I tell you the macro strategies that are working. And the only reason why I'm able to do that is because I spend another 30 hours near the weekend to just document everything in terms of laying it out. So I spend I have a full-time job just doing ad strategy for clients. And then I spend another 30 hours a week just actually documenting it here for you on this channel. That information's worth millions of dollars. And I've had many people become a millionaire just as a result of using the strategies alone on this channel, let alone just working with us and having us do the work for them. Therefore, and then with that, the reason why I mention that is you're not going to get it with other channels and whatnot, because these people are full-time content creators. They're not actively managing any ads themselves, and they're not abreast of these type of things. I find these things out through doing. I'm an actual practitioner. So if you are serious about making money with ads, you want to subscribe to this channel because you're not going to get better information elsewhere. I promise you that, as compared to what I'm sharing with you on this channel about specifically making lots of money with online ads and everything to do with online ads. Similar to that, if you like the channel, you should check out my blog on my site at guaranteeppc.com/blog. The blog has, in my opinion, even better information. I lay it out better. I lay it out in detail. A lot of you guys want specific instructions on how to do this type of stuff I talk about on this channel. You want visuals, I've got them there. So check that out as well. By all means, if you have any questions about anything I'm covering here or in general, marketing questions, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel, typically within 24 hours time. But getting back to the summary of this case study here. So what we did to show how much of a difference this made, essentially this client had been running ads for about 6 months. And during that time, we were collecting all this extra conversion data about who filled out the form a certain way and an ideal way that we wanted them to fill it out. In addition to how many people, tracking people that were filling out the form. And we were just optimizing for people filling out the multi-step form at first, like I mentioned that you should do, because it's going to get your campaigns off the ground quicker, because it takes a long time to get enough data to optimize for certain, questions being filled out on the form and so forth. So, but what we did was we built up that data in the background about who was telling us they had a certain amount of income, and 6 month point, we switched all the campaigns to optimize for this custom goal that tracks form fills and form fills from people who had a certain level of income. And guess what the results difference for this was in terms of the amount of people who fill out the form specifically with the right amount of income when we made this switch. Given that all we had was 112 people altogether during that 6-month period that filled out the form with a certain minimum income that we were looking for. 409% increase in form submissions at a certain minimum level of income that we were tracking and that we desired. Once we switched over the campaigns and had the machine learning algorithms optimize and filter for, on the ad side, people at a certain minimum level of income, which is what they do, just so you understand why this is so effective. I mean, essentially, most people think, a keyword is a keyword. If you target people looking for payday loans, you're just going to show up there or you won't. That's the way that it worked in 2007, back close to when I started. Nowadays, Google slices and dices all that traffic for that person who searches that keyword to get the maximum efficiency out of it and revenue that they can out of it. And they find out what is the likelihood of a person there that searches for that actually going to buy, and what are they looking for specifically in terms of a payday loan company. With that said, they are utilizing all the data that they've picked up about all the people who've ever searched for payday loan companies, and all from your competitors, from yourself, and then they make a real-time decision as to whether your ad should show, another person's ad should show, no ad should show. And I can tell you for a fact, and this still baffles a lot of people, but it clicks and it makes sense to them when I explain it. Google's going to divvy out and show ads to the people whom provide their users the best experience so that they want to come back to Google and click on ads in the future. So when you're advertising, you should always set up the best ad and landing page setup that you can, because that's going to put you in good graces with Google so that when they see somebody come through that's a likely buyer, they're going to want to prefer to show your ad first to encourage you to stay around. But in addition to that, in order to help their users get the best experience, part of delivering that is going to be making sure your ad shows for a person that you can actually serve, that somebody that has the revenue. They don't want to disappoint people so that they want to not be just too discouraged to come back to Google or to click on ads in the future. So you giving it the data about what somebody coming through that's actually useful to you, they're going to utilize that data because they want people to use their search engine and click on ads. So for that matter, you have to give it the correct data if you expect it to send you the right people, and they want to send you the right people. It's just a matter of getting the data in there. So, and they're going to look at things on an individual user level, what cars they drive, what websites they visit, how old they are, what's their income like. They have all this data on all their users because it's Google. They buy data from third parties to combine with their own data, on and on and on. They watch what websites you go to. I mean, they own Google Chrome. They own Google Analytics. They have so much data. Machine learning algorithms builds a profile on every user that they have that comes through Google. And so when somebody comes through and they indicate that they're a user that you can help, Google's going to look at the 1,000 traits that they know that person has and compare it to the next guy who is an ideal candidate for you that comes through, and the next 10 guys who aren't, and do a mathematical computation to figure out what are the traits of the people who search for payday loans that your ad should actually show up for versus not. And it'll filter actively your ads that are running basically willy-nilly for the keywords that you're targeting, and only have and find that 10, 20, 30% of the keyword traffic that you were getting before that actually pays and brings in and reels in the type of person you're looking for. And then it starts becoming massively profitable, but not typically before. So typically, I could get tons more results on an ad account just by upping the tracking. Bottom line, tracking things that are more closely correlated with actual profit in the business, and then racking up the data, then switching the campaigns optimized for that. Given that, though, just to keep in mind, when you switch everything up, your results are going to go backwards before they go forwards because Google hates changes. But I made a video about how to switch from one goal set to another without disrupting your results. You want to watch that video if you're going to do that. But ultimately, that should every single time be your end goal. What can we track within the first 90 days of somebody coming in to our website and inquiring, so that we can optimize for that's the closest to something that's going to show how profitable we are, and then optimize for that from now on. And then starting with, like I mentioned before, optimizing for stuff that is loosely correlated with profitability, but you get a bunch of data right away. But we had 409 with this guy because Google went to town and start filtering out the traffic that was searching for our keywords that were given to us before, started filtering out the people who did not match the trait profile of a person who did not have the income that we needed. And the next 6 months, our amount of people that did match the income requirements that we needed went up 409%. I mean, if you want any proof how well this actually works, this is it. And for that matter, any lead generation campaign that you run through Google Ads, in most markets, 9 out of 10 customers you get are just paying the bills. That one is where all the profits is made. And if you zoom out a bit more, 1 out of 100 customers is where half of your profit is made. Because there's a whale customer that's going to spend $1 million or $2 or $3 million with you over the next 10 years, and you wouldn't have got it otherwise, not advertising. So, and people think that, oh, I got 10 customers, I didn't make very much. No, you need a sample size of getting 1,000 customers to really know what the Google Ads is going to do for you. Maybe you will get lucky right away, but generally speaking, you're not. I mean, that's just how the odds are. And you're in it to get the whale customers, and that's where all the money's made, actually. So, and then when you're talking about e-commerce businesses, you got to track all your sales, even sales that occur through the phone if you have it, to get the true results out of ads that you want still at the end of the day. But anyway, if I haven't stressed enough that tracking is everything when it comes to ads, it really is. And you are going to only get better results over time if you're tracking sales or the next closest thing to it, because the system's going to get smarter and smarter and smarter, figuring out how to filter out your ads and then double down on places where you are normally getting whale customers from. And when it's set up right and your competition's not doing it, it's like going into battle at night with night vision goggles. You can see where the whales are and just take a sniper rifle and right away get them. And your competition's just going to say, oh, I don't need to do that, or I don't know how, or whatever. And you're going to do it. And so when a guy comes through that's a whale, you're going to outbid everyone for that person. And that also applies to YouTube ads, display ads, in places where your competition would also like to advertise as well, because it's always a competition. Same thing applies, by the way, to Facebook ads, if you want to mention that, because Facebook understands that you should get shown to people who visit your competitor sites and vice versa. I talked about this on one of my most recent videos about how lookalikes targeting essentially is just that. They're going to get you in front of people that have visited your competitor's website because they know that's the best candidate for you. They're actually actively doing this, and we've tested and verified that. But with that said, if you want the best outcome from your campaigns, really the best of the best for your business is to have somebody who's an ad genius working in-house on your stuff. Problem is, it's really hard to do that. Anybody that's really, really good on ads, they work and start their own agency mostly. No offense to anybody watching this. Or they start their own company. And for that matter, we've done a hybrid here at our agency where we will sit down with a company. If we like what they have and what they're selling, we see has a lot of potential. We'll say, hey, we'll do all your ads for free. We'll throw 50 grand in ad spend at your ads to get ads going and get a campaign going and solidly scaling for your company. In exchange, we want 1 to 10% of your revenue growth in your company, overall revenue growth. And it may sound like a lot that you're paying a lot, but for no risk, getting into and turning your company that, maybe you're stagnating, you're doing $1 million a year or $100,000 a year, you just can't grow, and taking you to $5 million. Yeah, even if you were paying half the profit, you now, instead of making, 100 grand a year, now you're making $1 million a year just because we took you from, 100 grand a year to 5 million. And now there's a whole bigger pie to share from. So if you're interested in that, let me know. We're looking for new companies to invest in and partner with and become equity partners like that. And so we're looking at different opportunities right now. Beyond that, I've got a great Discord group that I just opened up. After a lot of requests to open up a Discord group, I've done it finally. And to make the Discord group go, I put a fantastic advertising course on the group that if you go in there, you sign up to go into that group, the course is there. I should be charging money for that course in and itself, but I don't. I just used it to get people to join the Discord group and get it going. Similar to that, I'm going to be rolling out other free similar courses about Google ads, Facebook ads, and the like. If you want all that there and you want to stay to chat with other people from this channel who follow this channel, who are talking about different things that they're doing, You can find the link for the Discord group that I just rolled out in the channel video description. But with that said, I'm going to wrap everything up with that. Hopefully that made a lot of sense what I described here today. I hope you do take some action to get your tracking updated, the way that I'm talking about, multi-step forms and the like, and I'll see you in the next one. If you want to see another video, click here. It is one of my best ones.